Dakle ovako, imamo sada zadnju panel raspravu. Voditelj ovog panela danas je, ja moram priznati, izvrstan lik. Tako da ja ću voditi i bit će super. Što je to neočekivano? Imamo ovdje par gostiju koji su danas bili ovdje cijelo vrijeme sa nama. Panel će biti na engleskom jeziku, pa 98%, ovi 2% je ono što nećemo, pa ćemo recimo Miru pita kako se kaže. Moderator ja, David Williams, Irska, mislim da ga se sjećate s početka, dajte jedan aplauz, molim vas. Mark Moebius, CEO na Google Dance Germany. Marko Savković, direktor produkt marketinga za CEE regiju HTC Srbija. Viš kako smo super ovdje, Marko, iz Srbije dobio aplauz. Zafrkavam se! Pa mislim, čovjek je naš gost, možemo se zafrkavati. Igor Fiolić, PSS Country Manager HP Hrvatska. Okay, so we're going to start a panel discussion about the technologies of today. So, prvo ćemo pogledati film koji je N1 snimio samo za vas.
Što to neočekivano možemo očekivati od tehnologija koje nam stižu u bliskoj budućnosti. U Microsoftu kažu holograme.
Microsoft HoloLens.
Ovo je prvi potpuno holografski kompjutor. HoloLens je stvaran i bit će ubrzo dostupan na Windowsu 10.
HoloLens doista izgleda kao tehnologija iz 2015. godine, barem na visoko produciranim promotivnim videomaterijalima. No tako su izgledale i Google naočale koje na kraju ipak neće promijeniti način na koji gledamo svijet. Tehnologija bi zato mogla promijeniti način na koji gledamo filmove. Pomoću virtualne stvarnosti kakvu recimo razvija Oculus Rift, u film je doslovno moguće ući i poletjeti. Ako to na ovakvom uređaju doista želite.
To je samo jedan od smjerova budućnosti filma u kojem bi gledatelji sudjelovali u samom filmu. To je jedno sasvim novo iskustvo.
Jednu stvar ipak je lako predvidjeti. Tehnologija koja nam čuva zdravlje sigurno će se brzo razvijati.
To je jedna obična majica gdje su u tekstil ubačeni senzori koji prate rad organizma, poput EKG-a, što zapravo znači da se simptomi bolesti odmah šalju liječniku, čime se štedi dragocjeno vrijeme.
Kako će izgledati budućnost te kolikom će brzinom inovacije mijenjati svakodnevicu, ovisi o tome hoće li za sve biti dovoljno interneta. Količina podataka koju ljudi i uređaje razmjenjuju množe se iz dana u dan. Infrastruktura je već sada na rubu kapaciteta, a više od pola planeta još čeka spajanje.
Jedini način da dodatno povećamo pristup internetu i oslobodimo taj silni potencijal je da promet postane jeftiniji i zato svatko na ovoj pozornici radi sve što može kako bi spojili 60% ostatka svijeta.
Of course the concept is good. The issue is who pays.
Taj je koncept dobar, ali ostaje pitanje ko će platiti sve te investicije za potrebnu infrastrukturu. Ako Facebook želi velikodušno donirati dio svog prilično velikog prihoda, to je sjajno.
Sjajno bi doista bilo uskoro se voziti u automobilima bez vozača, upravljati svim uređajima pomoću mobitela, plaćati bez kartica ili obaviti liječničku pretragu na daljinu. No tu ćemo budućnost još morati pričekati. Do tada barem imamo belti, pametni pojas koji se za vrijeme ručka otpusti sam.
So, welcome guys. The panel discussion is going to be in English. First, let's start with the impressions of today. Mark and David, you don't understand creation, but how did you like the atmosphere? Do you have similar shows in your country?
Razumimo sve. We understood everything. It was a piece of cake. No, we have... thank you. There's a very big web summit in Dublin. I think it's one of the biggest in Europe. And it is... I always find it really interesting. It's maybe I'll say something maybe not necessarily that expected. Sometimes talking to the tech community is like speaking to the Moonies. And by that I mean everybody believes. It's like an evangelical cult, right? That everybody believes in the future and the power of technology. And I'm always intrigued because when I was a little boy in the 1970s in Ireland, I wanted to be an astronaut because that's what we saw on the television. It was Russians and Americans going into space. And if you look at the music from the 1970s, the early 70s, David Bowie's Space Odyssey, you have all these Stanley Kubrick's movies about space, that the culture became fascinated with the moon, not least because the technology was going there. And in Britain and Ireland, we had this TV program called Space 1999, which I'm not too sure if you bought here on the second-hand market. And this was saying that it was entirely logical in 1976 or 7, when I was a little boy, for humans to expect to live in space in 1999. And the culture, popular culture, musical culture, literature, cinema, all these things was driving towards a future in space, which never happened.
So we expect too much.
No, it's human nature to project forward from one or two small changes in people's lifestyle today and to imagine a future which is entirely different. Stanley Kubrick's Space 2001, you remember that, the Space Odyssey, you know that? 2001 came and went. It's now 2015. Not only was the space program not expanded, it was actually decelerated. So I'm always a little bit skeptical when I hear an evangelical movement based on technology suggesting that we will change the world. We may change wee bits about how we communicate and how we work, but I think that we sometimes need to have a wee bit of perspective on the whole thing. That the changes are not maybe as revolutionary as we think they are.
Mark, does that collide with your business plan? Because you expect people in a couple of years to be moving to their music.
Yeah, but I think it is the right idea that the changes are more valuable if they happen in the little things that belong to our life. So it's not about reaching the moon. It's not about living in space, because that will cost a lot of money, and who's going to pay it? So, in fact, I think it's better for us if we focus on our everyday life and to think of how technologies can improve this. And I'm very interested in the new technologies because I think what is happening now is that the obvious things are happening. So we can have a better access to each other by, social networks and so on. But I think in the longer term, we will see that there is some outcome of these new technologies which will affect our life in a way that we don't really know now, because it's not the obvious part of the technologies. And this will happen, I think, a few years, that we can realize, there is something that we already developed, that we are already working on, that we can use in a totally new way, which we don't think of now. And I want to say something. To be here is really great because there are so many young people here, and there are several shows like this also in Berlin, but many of them, and you don't really know where should I go. So there's lots of possibilities, but here it seems for me that it's somehow focused, and then everybody's here, and especially the young people, and I really think it's a great thing.
Can I just pick up on that? It's the one I was going to talk about in Dublin. Is very, very big and very successful, as Mark says, and big, flamboyantly outrageous thing. However, what you feel is that it's basically an investment banking gig with technology attached onto it, okay? Because it's all about who can IPO this startup we can float, etc. And it's very much a sort of an American feel, whereas here, even chatting outside, I got the same feeling as Mark, is that, it is not part of the Wall Street investment banking culture, which is broadly involved in tech in the United States, not least because tech makes money. So I agree with you on that. It's a much different feel. It's a lovely feel.
Mr. Igor, what did you like about the show today? can you, we had a lot of panel discussions about flying cars. Mate Rimac said it's not going to work because, of course, he's the electric car lobby, so of course he's against flying cars. But what did you like today? Do you have anything that you can put your finger on and go like, this is the future?
It's hard to say what is the future, really, to select something between many things. But what I really like about this show is that it's a little bit different than probably the other things which I'm going to, and that maybe some ideas which will not find a place or some other show here you maybe can see, and the people, the structure of the people who come in here are more acceptable to see something which is maybe not totally, well, maybe realistic in the near future, let's say. So maybe people who are coming here are accepting better than the others here. So I
think some of them are even disappointed. They expected really some not realistic stuff. So it was like, I read about it on the internet. Well, what was your pick about? What was your pick of the conference?
That we can just sit, communicate, and interact one with another. And besides the things that are already reachable to all of us, like the smartphones to all of us and the electric cars to the very few, we can see that the trends are changing, and in the near future we are going to be able to experience a lot of the things that we have only dreamed about in a very near past. So yes, for us it seems to be like a small step, evolutionary progress in our TVs, in our devices, in every single piece of technology that we use. But all in all, if you just think about how did your personal device or a mobile phone look like in 2008, you will see that this is a really, really big step up comparing to the trends today. So I really do enjoy summarizing and recapping the year before us, and maybe looking and trying to see something in the near future, and hoping to predict the future in the next couple of years. So,
cool. Now let's get serious. Let's talk about money. Not like they're going to give me money. Let's talk about money. So we have a young gentleman here who is a Kickstarter generation. Can I call you that? Because you're the one who built your project from the ground up with, I suppose, no money, and you're looking for funding. So funding from investors, from Kickstarter, Indiegogo. Yeah. We have a couple of here guys who write books with Kickstarter and Indiegogo and stuff. Are big companies threatened by, that kind of business?
No, it's complementary. So actually, at least I'm coming from HP. If you're looking at what HP is doing in the last few years, it is definitely more and more trying to do some invention and some new products, new technology, new stuff, which probably, if there will not be such a smaller company, startups who invent many different things, probably even big companies will stay on the more or less boring level, will not introduce so many new things. So actually, I will not say competing, but seeing what the startups are doing, HP is also much better and then much faster, and this is probably why we have so many announcements in the last 1 or 2 years.
So startups are making big companies more flexible, agile.
Yes, definitely, yes.
Yeah, to keep your eyes on the money.
Yeah.
What about the HTC?
Well, we are definitely
the best. So
no, I'm not saying the best, but it's really good to see that at least 3 of us out of the 4 panelists are using HTC phones. So I think this is a really good average.
Phone.
Yeah. So you are not the panelist; you are the host.
Oh yeah.
So sorry, man. And you are a little bit shorter than me, so. Yeah.
So I'm scared.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Basically, there is definitely a lot of things going on when it comes to ideas and how we can improve the physical interaction, the interaction itself between a man and technology. So it's not just about adding the latest CPU and just cramming a bunch of memory inside of a certain device, whatever that device might be. I'm not just talking about phones, but where the whole industry and the whole community might might benefit from is the different kinds of approach when it comes to user interaction with those devices. Yes, all of us are really technology enthusiasts. Some of us are really hardcore geeks, but we need to make this technology approachable by almost everyone if we want this trend to continue. So in that way, I cannot speak in front of my own company when it comes to investments, but I can tell you that regarding the products, things are going to be very interesting in the next couple of years.
Cool. A question for you, Mr. David. Are we really going to change how we earn money, spend money, loan money? Because there was a panel discussion about money and how it's changing. Even they had a panel show here about bitcoins. I mean, they mentioned bitcoins. I was surprised that people even here know about bitcoins, especially the banks and, you know, let's say old people know about bitcoins. I was surprised about that. Is that, how is money changing?
Well, I think I think this is a really fascinating area because if you look over history, you know, money and power are synonymous. The person who has the money, the king who has the money, the central bank who prints the money, that gives you power. And money is a very ephemeral thing. It only exists because we trust it, actually. But it has no real use in much of people's lives in terms of the actual cash. I think what's really intriguing is what is going to happen to income via these smartphone things. Okay, this little Yokni bus, which is HTC, there's no doubt, but I probably didn't even know it was HTC because it was chosen by my son. I was bullied in the shop. I actually wanted to get an old Nokia, and they said, "Dad, you'd be such an idiot with a Nokia. So get this shit." So I said, "Fair enough." And now it's full of apps that I don't know what they do. Hopefully they're legal and pure, but they're being put up by my son. But I think, you know, what's interesting is the following. You have a total change in the way in which income is earned as a result of this. And as somebody who writes books for a living, I've kind of seen how this changes people's perception, how the disruption in technology. I've some friends of mine who are very, very good musicians who actually cannot make a living. And the reason they cannot make a living is that over the last 10 years, nobody's prepared to pay for music. So as a consequence of that, you produce a certain type of feeling, which is, you know, musicians, you can't get paid. You think about good journalists. In the old days, journalists worked for newspapers. Those newspapers commanded an income and people got paid. Now you have citizen journalism. But it means actually journalism is being destroyed in front of our eyes, as is musicianship in a certain way. And then it strikes me, where does this end? And if you think of most, as Europeans, the vast majority of technology has disrupted the working classes. So fellas who worked in factories were disrupted by automation. And automation changed them. And what's interesting about smartphones and smart technology now is it's very, very soon is going to impact on the middle classes, on doctors, on lawyers, on accountants, all these so-called prestige professions, which were the, you know, like for my mother and her generation, were like, oh, become a lawyer because people will say hello to you at Mass. This is the hierarchy in Ireland, okay, in church. What is going to happen when, for example, doctors become obsolete because their diagnostics are not as accurate as medical diagnostics which we can get from technology? When lawyers become obsolete because, frankly, some guy or woman sitting over thousands of pages of a contract is going to be superseded by technology, and accountants. And this, what I find quite interesting, is that we could be on a nihilistic comet to destruction of established middle classes of Europe. And that's a really interesting, that's the downside of technology is rarely articulated by technologists. Because, as I said, it's an evangelical, futuristic world. And this concerns me.
You kind of touched my next question. Next question was, what does a young person now need to study? I mean, not just study, not study like, oh, I'm going to be a lawyer or a doctor or something, but what kind of mindset?
I think it's a really good question.
What kind of mindset do they need to have?
Well, it's funny. I was at. This is the maybe the difference between the Croatian middle class conversation and Irish middle class conversation in an island off Šibenik last summer. There was a lot of booze involved, and the parents were being particularly animated about their children. And some of the Croatians, who are very, very good friends, were talking about how, their daughters and their sons, wanted to be lawyers. And we spoke about this obsession with academia. I wanted to be doctors, and etc. And my daughter said, "Dad, I want to be Beyonce." Okay? But I thought that was actually a really nice thing.
I want to be Beyonce.
She says, "I want to be," I said, "Well, listen, who doesn't?" But I said, "Well, maybe you're the wrong color, darling." And she said, "Well, that's a bit of a problem, but And I was talking to my wife about it, and I said, "Well, this is a lovely thing, that a child or teenage girl feels confident enough to say, there are other things out there." And I believe that, and I touched on this morning in the speech, that we are educating teenagers in a ludicrously narrow fashion into professions which will not exist. When I look at my own career over 25 years, most of the jobs that I ended up doing didn't exist 5 years before. Okay? I mean, this is the truth. I started my work in the early 90s as an economist in the Central Bank of Ireland on European Union monetary integration. That job wouldn't have existed 5 years before because there was no EMU. And then I went to work as an emerging market strategist for an investment bank, which wouldn't have existed 5 years before because the emerging market was Russia, then it was the Soviet Union, it was a communist country. And then I ended up going on to work in writing popular economics books, which didn't exist before, and all these things. So what I think for kids is to tell them that most of the perceptions of security which are articulated by and enthused by the education system are really talking about a 20th century version of the world, possibly even in the context of education, a 19th century version of the world. So let them be free, let them be liberated. Let them do what Mark does. Let them talk about dance. Let them talk about things, because this is the world.
Yeah, maybe I can add something here also, because when I was really young, I had one of those first computers that existed. I think it was like the Commodore 64 or something. Yeah. And I started coding myself at home. I mean, made little music programs. And then I thought, oh, this is nothing real. It's just a hobby thing. And nobody said, hey, that's cool, do this. I was like, I felt lost or alone with this. And so I ended up doing something else, studying music in a serious way, which kept me from beginning 10 years earlier, doing this, what I'm doing now. So I had to find my way back to my original idea, what I wanted to do. And so I can tell to the young people, if you do something that is really kind of easy for you and that you like, but nobody supports you, you should stay with this and develop this, and maybe you get an idea of what you later can do with it. So yes, just follow the intuition you have.
This is so important to tell younger people, do what you love.
Yeah,
because you will be good at what you love. This is so obvious now as you get older, right? And you see and you've made mistakes and everything. But if you could just understand that if you try and do what you love, you will be so much better at what you love than stuff you don't like, okay? And when you're much better at it, you'll get paid more, you'll be happier, and eventually you will morph into this person, which all of us should try to morph into, whereas your job and yourself become actually one and the same thing. You just do stuff, and somebody pays for it. And, so people say, are you going to work? And you say, well, technically, yes, but in actual fact, this is what I love. And I really think this is an enormously important thing to tell people, whatever you love, whatever it happens to be, get better at it, do it, because as Mark has shown, you can make a good living, but more importantly, you can have a nice life, and you can live as a full human being in this bizarre 70-odd years, or maybe 80 years we have on this bloody place, right? Mm-hmm. And it's really important that when you get up in the morning, that you feel, okay, this is cool, I like this. And that feeling, if you get it, you can have that into your 80s and 90s. And that's what I feel that we should always tell younger people, that You know, when you do what you love, you are so inspired by it.
It can be hard though. So if the thing you love and you want to do is something that is not completely in line with the world around you, it can be very hard to go this way, because you won't find maybe money for that at the beginning. And but of course, if you love your profession, you get stronger. And if you love your partner also, you get stronger, but at least you cannot be sure about your partner or your private life, so you can be sure about your profession.
Would you like to tell us something that you'd like to announce to the audience?
No.
It's fine. Feel free.
No,
it's okay.
No,
I know you're German. It's hard for you.
The more. The thing I mean is, the more you love, the better you get.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So if it's the profession or whatever.
And then the more you give to something, the more you get back.
Yeah.
And it's really true. And it's about breaking out of the tyranny of your peer group and conventional wisdom. And it's really essential. I do, go around schools in Ireland talking to teenagers, and all the time I get this yearning for the teenagers to do stuff that's meaningful for them. Stuff that they value. Like when I see my own kids, and they value like GTA, right? Grand Theft Auto. I know he's 12, he shouldn't be playing an 18's game, but hey, that's what happens, right? And then, so you've a kid who's obsessed by this stuff, right? That's what's important to them. Then you put them into school, and somebody says, you've got to learn now about Bismarck. You're like, what the fuck? Bismarck? Who is that dude, right? And the Irish teacher saying, and Bismarck introduced the welfare state in 1885 in Germany. And my son, with his head full of football and GTA and stuff, right? He is going to school and he's been actively told that what you value is inconsequential, is not important. What we value is absolutely important. And they're totally conflicted all the time.
Let me just switch the subject a bit. So you were talking about mindset of young people, of course, entrepreneurs like Mark. But what does it take for a person? I think a lot of you want to work for these guys in the corporate structures. So what kind of person do you need to be successful in corporate structures?
Well, I also have a kid, so what I recommend to them, at least, yes, it's definitely true. Do what you like, and where you have feeling better that you can do it on the right way, then focus on this one. On the other hand, I really push them to, during their life, they learn many tools. So the school, also university, whatever, there you can learn many things which are actually tools. At least when I was on a technical university, okay, maybe things what I learned then are totally irrelevant today, so the technology at that time. But on the other hand, the main point at university was that I learned many tools, how I can use many things around me and how to use it to do the job. So as I am from this sector, definitely I would say that this engineering professionals is something what I somehow prefer, and not only that they are important for the technology and for the most of the business you do today, I think that also that approach creates give you many tools to do other things better, let's say. Let's say these days I'm doing some constructions, let's say, and I see that my engineering knowledge really helps me to build even maybe better something in construction of my house than maybe those guys from this area are doing. Mm-hmm. So I think it is very important that you push people to really learn as much as possible and really to gain more and more tools in their life. And it is much easier to them after that to do what they really like, whatever they do.
Is technology going to help us to be better writers, artists? Let me rephrase that. Are we all going to be better writers or musicians or anything without mother panelists?
I don't believe that, but at least technology gives you the chance to spend less time on some unimportant thing, administration, whatever you have to do. Because in your life, you cannot do always what do you like. Many things you have to do because you have to do because of some other reasons.
Yes, we know that.
So if technology helps you to do that quickly, then it is much more time to spend on real stuff you would like to do.
Are we going to live healthier and for you, Marko. Are we going to live healthier and longer because of technology? I mean, with these technology, I'm not really philosophical, but with these technologies right now, like with these wristbands or belts that calculate your heart rate and everything, are we going to live longer?
Well, to answer that, I will give you a very simple example on what happened to me. For my past birthday from my colleagues, I got one of those wristbands that calculates absolutely everything and is somehow trying to stimulate you to live your life healthier and do fitness and move, calculate your steps and everything else. And then I realized that I have just used it for a couple of times, inserting what I ate and combining this with pictures of my plate. So yes, technology will help us and can help us, but we need to be a part of that in order for that to succeed. So will we live a longer life? Yes, but if we try to eliminate the stress. So the technology and the breakthroughs in medicine will allow us to live longer. And it will definitely happen, but we need to get to that point, and we need to survive until that moment when this will become relevant. So yes, integration between different digital stuff in our life will and can definitely help us.
Everything's connected now. I mean, we have mobile phones that are connected to our bracelets to our fridge to TV, everything's going to have a SIM card, so...
Well, you have to admit it's really cool.
It is cool.
Yeah?
It is
and
cool.
This is why we're all here. So yes, I want to have an IP address of absolutely everything in my life. I want to remotely connect to everything, and I want this technology to be accessible for every non-geek out there. So it's looking really interesting, and despite some crazy ideas that we might hear in the process of going there, the whole connectivity is only and can only be interpreted as a big plus for all of us.
Okay, question for all of you. I have three things here: virtual reality, 3D printing, or Internet of Things. These are three things. What is your opinion I mean, not the next big thing, because there are big things, but what would you put your money on? Virtual reality, 3D printing, or Internet of Things? I mean, the connectivity of
Internet of Things. That's my vote. Yeah.
HP already announced they are going to 3D printing.
3D printing? Sure, they printed a house in China a couple of days ago. Yeah, so that's a really small house, or what?
Yes, really I think that 3D printing went, well, still a lot of development, of course, in this area, but will definitely change the way how we are living. Because we will not go to store to buy something what is missing at house, but we will connect and then download the software, and then we'll produce it in our house very soon. That will happen.
That's going to be so cool. I mean, I'm sorry. The 3D printing is going to be so good. We're going to be like Star Trek. Earl Grey.
That is definitely coming. That is definitely coming. And also manufacturers will change. They will not anymore produce so many final things, but they will produce materials, software, models, whatever. And we will be more creative to have unique things at home, not to buy what everybody else have. So that time's come, and this is just now a matter of evolution, let's say.
I think the porn industry is going to be huge with 3D printing. But enough. That's my money on that. Mr. David, what do you think? 3D printing, virtual reality, or Internet
Well, I'm no expert in all this carry-on at all, but I do think in terms of putting your money on something, it's an interesting point that you were talking there to Marko about with this idea of prolonging your life and technology. If you actually look at not so much technology, but the increases in medical technology in the last 30 years, what actually happens is something very strange. From about the Second World War until about 1970, we stumbled upon technology that not only prolongs your life, but prolongs your living. So we took drugs, we got drugs that actually made you healthy.
We like drugs.
Okay, we do all like drugs. The more illegal, the better. But that will change too, I suspect. But if you think about it, so in my grandfather's time, as a European, many, many millions of people were killed by influenza. And influenza was something, and tuberculosis. When you found a cure for tuberculosis, not only did you cure people, but you cured people in their 20s, and they lived until their 60s quite healthily. So the actual medical technology prolonged life, the process of living. Now I fear that we're going into a world where medical technology is prolonging the process of dying, the natural process of dying, which is very unpleasant. If anybody's had a parent who has died or somebody close to them, they will know that this is an unpleasant reality. That medical technology now, particularly in the Anglo-American world, for where I'm from, is in the business of prolonging death, actually. Okay, that you die, and that process of dying, which in the past might have taken a year or two, we can now make it 10 years. Okay, it's not a great vista. And therefore, to make money on all this, you think if this is the way in which, and all humans want to live for as long as possible, I think most of us do anyway, we fear dying. I think maybe you apply 3D printing and making houses for people who are dying, but that process is a 20-year period with medical technology. And you begin to see that there is a third or fourth age now, which wasn't the case in our parents' generation, and certainly not in our grandparents' generation. And that, I think, will be the big change for all humans, will be how we live that last 15 years of our lives. And it's something we don't think about because we don't like to think about it. But I'm not too sure the advances in technology are actually very positive in that regard.
Mark?
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, virtual reality for you, or?
Yeah, but I have to add something here. So I would put my money that I don't have at the moment into the virtual reality, yes. But
we're going to help you. I mean,
no. You don't have to. It will come, I think.
We did that. We're going to do it again.
Yeah, but I wanted to add here something, because I think what we didn't talk about yet is that we are all looking through the new technologies for a new state of consciousness, which belongs to the future. We all feel that the old answers are not enough, also in terms of religion and how I perceive the world, to fully be a member of the future. So for me, the new technologies are a tool to experience yourself in a new way in order to get a new state of consciousness. And the virtual reality might be a very good tool to trigger and shape the consciousness itself in a new way that we cannot do without the virtual reality. And therefore, I think this experience it shouldn't be like just war games. This is the starting point, because it's very obvious that you cannot kill in reality, so you can kill in virtual reality. But you can also do different things in virtual reality that affect your consciousness. And I think that will be, for me personally, this will be the next step for mankind, to go a next step in your own consciousness, and not just having a new device. There's also little steps in this process for me.
But all of these technologies, like my final question, I mean, we have 3 minutes more. Let me put it this way. My final question is, what are you excited about? What's the technology of the future? And of course, you don't know, but is it autonomous cars, drones, wearables, or something else? And you're going to answer that, but we have to have, I mean, you can see in America, a drone crashed in the White House.
Yes, that's true.
And now there's a big fuss, because you can go to the White House and crash a drone with maybe some nuclear devices. I mean, we have people from America here in the embassy. I'm not giving anybody ideas, but we have to have laws. I mean, autonomous cars, cool, that's great, but come on, where's the driving license of the car and the SIM card? We'll have to restrict that.
Don't be terrifying the poor Americans.
Restrictions, do we restrict other maybe ideas or something?
I don't know, but I mean, America's capacity for being scared seems to me to be infinite. About everything.
Yes.
You're Croats, I'm Irish. We went through our own political and military issues in our lifetime, okay? And you know that that when you've lived through a country which one part hates each other, you get used to it after a while. And I think the poor old Yanks, they've lived in the world for so long that they believed everyone loved them, and then they woke up one day and they did shit they don't. And I mean, if you travel through America, I find flying to New York hilarious. This outrageously neurotic fear of the other, and it doesn't matter who the other is. It could be Arabs, Muslims, whatever it happens to be. But I think you've put your finger on something very interesting, which is, because you talk about regulation and control, which is, where does the nation state that we all belong to, each of us, end and this cosmopolitan global world begin? And where they collide together, who wins? And I think this is an incredibly, like, for example, all the WikiLeaks and all that stuff, Julian Assange and all that sort of stuff. This is a very strange area, because the nation state that we all live in and have passports and says we are Croatian or Serbian or German or Irish or whatever, that's one issue. But it's becoming constantly eroded by technology and by communication and by travel. And I'm not sure where it ends, and where the nation state stands up and says enough and begins to control in a dramatic way. I have no idea, but I can't see the erosion of the power of the state going on indefinitely.
Final question for Mr. I mean, I have three final questions, but really quick, because we have like a minute. For Mr. Igor, what's the future for HP? What can we expect from you, like this year, 2015?
Actually, I'm coming from this PPS part, which is responsible for the devices, it means computers printing. So once already I said, 3D printers are coming late in this year. Definitely what we are constantly develop are devices like notebooks, ultrabooks, two-in-one devices. So all these devices which we use to somehow connect to the internet, to the global network. So there is a big evolution, and more everything becoming really wireless. Let's say today we announced this new, let's say, docking station, which is totally wireless. Today you have, I don't know, two-in-one device. So you have notebook, then you unplug the screen, you have the tablet, but you come to home, you plug the screen to the keyboard, and then put on the table, press one button, and then you have everything connected, big screen, printer, networking, everything, because you have wireless also network. So this is, let's say, kind of evolution in which direction we are going. The third evolution we are doing now is, maybe you already see the Sprout device, which also HP is now even starting to sell. This is device with two big screens, scanners, 3D camera, actually where you, with your fingers, somehow try to do some modeling or something, whatever. So really new wave how to use the computer instead of traditional mouse and keyboard. So, and then come to maybe virtual reality, whatever, with kind of these devices. So this is one direction also where I go. But for sure, in the short time, I believe that devices like super ultrabook, smallest, totally wireless will stay the primary device for us to use.
What's the next step for HTC?
Well, we want everyone to fully...
Buy HTC.
Also, yeah. But we basically want to stay focused on a smartphone, and we would like actually the smartphone to be the center of your digital world. So in the future, and let's say in the near future, in 2015, you're going to see some really innovative and exciting devices, also excellently designed, coming from HTC, because let's be realistic, all of us simply have to have a mobile phone. I mean, we are really, this is the single device that we are using every day, all day long, and we are going to focus on that user experience and providing some really cool and innovative features as well.
Cool. Mark, where are you going next?
Finishing our product and selling.
Gonna celebrate.
Hopefully something good. Yeah.
Cool. Mr. David, thank you. I mean, what are your plans? Are you going to grab a beer with somebody here?
I think that's an absolute essential end to any
You
conference.
talked about beer so much.
Exactly.
I think
we have to go for a couple of pivos. There's no doubt of that. And
Yeah,
I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure. Is Karlovaško better than Žuško? You tell me. You know, it's the big Croatian dilemma. You know,
you can't even pronounce the beer. I mean, who cares?
Who cares? Exactly.
Jedan aplauz molim vas za naše paneliste. Malo smo filozofirali danas, ali eto, to je isto bio dio Bug Future Showa.